The tetragrammaton appears repeatedly in distinctive ancient Hebrew characters. Jehovah. Importance of the name. Many modern scholars and Bible translators advocate following the tradition of eliminating the distinctive name of God. They not only claim that its uncertain pronunciation justifies such a course, but also hold that the supremacy and uniqueness of the true God make unnecessary his having a particular name. Such a view receives no support from the inspired scriptures, either those of pre-Christian times or those of the Christian Greek scriptures. The tetragrammaton occurs 6,828 times in the Hebrew text printed in Biblia Hebraica and Biblia Hebraica Stuttgartense. In the Hebrew scriptures, the New World Translation contains the divine name 6,979 times, because the translators took into account, among other things, the fact that in some places the scribes had replaced the divine name with adho-middle.a or elo-middle.him. CNW Appendix, pages 1561, 1562. The very frequency of the appearance of the name attests to its importance to the Bible's author, whose name it is. Its use throughout the scriptures far outnumbers that of any of the titles, such as Sovereign Lord or God, apply to him. Noteworthy, also, is the importance given to names themselves in the Hebrew scriptures and among Semitic peoples. Professor G. T. Manley points out, a study of the word name in the Old Testament reveals how much it means in Hebrew. The name is no mere label, but is significant of the real personality of him to whom it belongs. When a person puts his name upon a thing or another person, the latter comes under his influence and protection. New Bible Dictionary, edited by J. D. Douglas, 1985, p. 430. Compare Everyman's Talmud, by A. Cohen, 1949, p. 24. GE 27. 36. 1 Sir 25. 25. PS 20. 1. PR 22. 1. See name. God and Father not distinctive. The title God is neither personal nor distinctive. One can even make a God of his belly. PHP 3. 19. In the Hebrew scriptures the same word elo-middle.him is applied to Jehovah, the true God, and also to false gods, such as the Philistine god Dagon JG 16. 23, 24. 1 Sir 5. 7 and the Assyrian god Nisroch. 2K 19. 37. For a Hebrew to tell a Philistine or an Assyrian that he worshipped God elo-middle.him would obviously not have sufficed to identify the person to whom his worship went. In its articles on Jehovah, the Imperial Biblia Dictionary nicely illustrates the difference between elo-middle.him God and Jehovah. Of the name Jehovah, it says, it is everywhere a proper name, denoting the personal God in him only. Whereas Elohim partakes more of the character of a common noun, denoting usually, indeed, but not necessarily nor uniformly, the Supreme. The Hebrew may say the Elohim, the true God, in opposition to all false gods. But he never says the Jehovah, for Jehovah is the name of the true God only. He says again and again my God. But never my Jehovah, for when he says my God, he means Jehovah. He speaks of the God of Israel, but never of the Jehovah of Israel, for there is no other Jehovah. He speaks of the living God, but never of the living Jehovah, for he cannot conceive of Jehovah as other than living. Edited by P. Fairbairn, London, 1874, Volume I, p. 856. The same is true of the Greek term for God, Theos. It was applied alike to the true God and to such pagan gods as Zeus and Hermes, Roman Jupiter and Mercury. Compare Act 14. 11-15. Presenting the true situation of Paul's words at 1 Corinthians 8. 4-6. For even though there are those who are called gods, whether in heaven or on earth, just as there are many gods and many lords, there is actually to us one God the Father, out of whom all things are, and we for him. The belief in numerous gods, which makes essential that the true God be distinguished from such, has continued even into this 21st century. Paul's reference to God the Father does not mean that the true God's name is Father, for the designation Father applies as well to O textoi acute miritra longo, Jehovah 9, not also of people of the nations. Yes, of people of the nations also. Row 3. 29 Jehovah is not only the God of the whole earth Issa 54. 5 but also the God of the universe, the maker of heaven and earth. PS 124. 8 Jehovah's covenant with Abraham, nearly 2,000 years earlier than Paul's day, had promised blessings for people of all nations, showing God's interest in all mankind. GE 12. 1-3. Compare 10. 34, 35. 11. 18. Jehovah God eventually rejected the unfaithful nation of fleshly Israel. But his name was to continue among the new nation of spiritual Israel, the Christian congregation, even when that new nation began to embrace non-Jewish persons in its membership. Presiding at a Christian assembly in Jerusalem, the disciple James therefore spoke of God as having turned his attention to the non-Jewish nations to take out of them a people for his name. As proof that this had been foretold, James then quoted a prophecy in the book of Amos in which Jehovah's name appears. Act 15. 2, 12-14. Am 9. 11, 12. In the Christian Greek scriptures. In view of this evidence, it seems most unusual to find that the extant manuscript copies of the original text of the Christian Greek scriptures do not contain the divine name in its full form. The name therefore is also absent from most translations of the so-called New Testament. Yet the name does appear in these sources in its abbreviated form at Revelation 19. 1, 3, 4, 6, in the expression Alleluia or Hallelujah KJ, Die, JB, as, RS. The call there recorded as spoken by Spirit Sons of God to praise Jah, your people. NW makes clear that the divine name was not obsolete. It was as vital and pertinent as it had been in the pre-Christian period. Why, then, the absence of its full form from the Christian Greek scriptures? Why is the divine name in its full form not in any available ancient manuscript of the Christian Greek scriptures? The argument long presented was that the inspired writers of the Christian Greek scriptures made their quotations from the Hebrew scriptures on the basis of the Septuagint, and that, since this version substituted Kyrie middle dotos or the middle dotos for the Tetragrammaton, these writers did not use the name Jehovah. As has been shown, this argument is no longer valid. Commenting on the fact that the oldest fragments of the Greek Septuagint do contain the divine name in its Hebrew form, Dr. Picard says, "We now know that the Greek Bible text, the Septuagint, as far as it was written by Jews for Jews, did not translate the divine name by Kyrios, but the Tetragrammaton written with Hebrew or Greek letters was retained in such MSS manuscripts. It was the Christians who replaced the Tetragrammaton by Kyrios, when the divine name written in Hebrew letters was not understood anymore." The Kyrogenizer, Oxford, 1959, p. 222. When did this change in the Greek translations of the Hebrew scriptures take place? It evidently took place in the centuries following the death of Jesus and his apostles. In Aquila's Greek version, dating from the 2nd century CE, the Tetragrammaton still appeared in Hebrew characters. Around 245 CE, the noted scholar Origen produced his Hexapla, a 6-column reproduction of the inspired Hebrew scriptures. One in their original Hebrew and Aramaic, accompanied by 2 of transliteration into Greek, and by the Greek versions of 3 Aquila, 4 Symmachus, 5 the Septuagint, and 6 Theodotion. On the evidence of the fragmentary copies now known, Professor W. G. Waddell says, in Origen's Hexapla, the Greek versions of Aquila, Symmachus, and Elixix Septuagint all represented JHWH by. In the 2nd column of the Hexapla, the Tetragrammaton was written in Hebrew O textoi acute miritra longo. Jehovah 10 copies were not the early disciples of Jesus. They were persons of later centuries, when the foretold apostasy was well developed and had corrupted the purity of Christian teachings. 2th 3. 1t4. 1. Used by Jesus and his disciples. Thus, in the days of Jesus and his disciples, the divine name very definitely appeared in copies of the scriptures, both in Hebrew manuscripts and in Greek manuscripts. Did Jesus and his disciples use the divine name in speech and in writing? In view of Jesus' condemnation of Pharisaic traditions, Mount 15. 1-9, it would be highly unreasonable to conclude that Jesus and his disciples let Pharisaic ideas such as are recorded in the Mishnah govern them in this matter. Jesus' own name means Jehovah is salvation. He stated, "I have come in the name of my Father." Joe 5:43. He taught his followers to pray, "Our Father in the heavens, let your name be sanctified." Mount 6:9. His works, he said, were done in the name of my Father. Joe 10:25. And, in prayer on the night of his death, he said he had made his Father's name manifest to his disciples and asked, "Holy Father, watch over them on account of your own name." Joe 17:6, 11, 12, 26. In view of all of this, when Jesus quoted the Hebrew scriptures or read from them, he certainly used the divine name, Jehovah. Compare Mount 4, 7, 10 with 8, 3, 6, 16, 6, 13. Also Mount 22, 37 with the 6, 5. And Mount 22, 44 with PS 110, 1. As well as Lu 4, 16-21 with Isa 61, 1, 2. Logically, Jesus' disciples, including the inspired writers of the Christian Greek scriptures, would follow his example in this. Why, then, is the name absent from the extant manuscripts of the Christian Greek scriptures, also called New Testament? Evidently because by the time those extant copies were made from the 3rd century CE onward, the original text of the writings of the apostles and disciples had been altered. Thus later copyists undoubtedly replaced the divine name in tetragrammaton form with Kyrie os in the middle os. Picture, Volume 1, p. 324. This is precisely what the facts show was done in later copies of the Septuagint translation of the Hebrew Scriptures. Restoration of the divine name in translation. Recognizing that this must have been the case, some translators have included the name Jehovah in their renderings of the Christian Greek Scriptures. The emphatic Diaglott, a 19th century translation by Benjamin Wilson, contains the name Jehovah a number of times.